be great.
Yep.
I've got my AirPods in, and because there's literally a wood chipper right outside my window. Of course, there's a wood chipper. So hopefully my AirPods hold up and you don't lose me. Real quick before I'm trying to see if I can find a way to, yeah, that's what I want to see. Okay. So folks that are online that are in this session, let me know where you're from. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. We've got a balmy 70 degrees today. I'm going to assume that people can chat. I just want to know where people are from. Yeah, let me know where you're from. I want to know. St. Louis, Missouri. I love St. Louis. I have been to that Six Flags. There's a wooden roller coaster that I thought I was going to get decapitated on, and I did not. And I was very happy about that. Omaha, Nebraska. I've never been to Nebraska, much to my chagrin, but I loved the Cornhuskers back in the 90s. I thought they did great stuff. Tommy Frazier and all those folks. Philadelphia, great city. I love it. Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Yes, Nashville. When I got married, I had my bachelor party in Nashville. It was a blast. Love Nashville. Yeah, so this makes me feel like I can almost see you. You know, it's a little bit different being on a virtual stage and not being able to like see and talk in the same way. So thanks for humoring me, and feel free to drop any commentary throughout this conversation. Of course, I'm running the slides here, and I've got my doc up, so who knows how there'll probably be some snafus, but that's okay. My name is Jason Tatum. I'm on the product team at CallRail, as Jenny said. I'm here to talk about how conversation tracking is the key to optimizing your customer's journey. I want to give you those tips on utilizing a platform like CallRail to do that optimizing and to create that seamless experience. I really want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join me. I am so happy that you're here. I want you to know I'm going to make a promise that for this hour, I am not going to talk about politics or plagues unless you ask me and how they pertain to conversation tracking. I'll answer them or obfuscate as much as I can. But this is a safe place from some of that stuff, and we're just going to be talking about really nerdy digital marketing stuff. So with that, a little bit about who I am. Oh, here's the agenda. We're going to talk about these things, integrate tracking from different interactions, conversation intelligence, tools you use for seamless reporting, and then kind of bringing it all together in one place. So that's what we're talking to. Okay, so a little bit about me. Dossier here, I'm Jason Tatum. It's helpful a little bit know, where I come from. I have a beautiful wife named Sarah. I have a dog that I cuddle named Patsy. She takes up most of the bed, knocks me off of it. Sorry about my very cluttered former headboard there. That's my daughter Hazel right there. She's 14 months old. She's walking like crazy. She's trying to talk, but she doesn't know how yet. That picture there on the beach, that was taken just last week down in 38 in the Gulf of Florida. So that's my family. Fun fact, I lived in England for a while, and I spent some time in Spain, and I actually ran with bulls. And it's a long story. I am not swift, so it was harrowing, but I'm not gonna, if this goes well and Jenny decides to have me back, then I might tell you a story about running with the bulls one day, but we only have so much time today. So more on that later. I'm a casual cycler. I love the city of Atlanta, and I love to read. And I think it's good to know a little bit more, just like the deeper wiring of who I am and why the conversation around tracking, call tracking, full lead attribution, and those types of things are so interesting to me. So have any of you ever done, this is another throw it in the chat question, have you ever done StrengthsFinder tests? If you have done StrengthsFinder tests, throw in like what your top strength is or what your top couple of strengths are. If you don't know what StrengthsFinder is, it's one of those business aptitude / personality tests that has gone through waves of popularity through the years. In short, you answer a bunch of questions, and they will list out, you know, they'll tell you who you are, for better or worse. They'll tell you what your strengths are in order. And honestly, for me, I'm not a big personality test person. I like them, but I take it with a grain of salt. But StrengthsFinder was one of those things that sort of helped me understand myself in a very positive way. The thing with StrengthsFinder is it's just all very definitive. You know, or a lot of like personality tests are very definitive. They're very Team Retreat 2006 kind of vibes, you know. And I thought for sure, you know, I would get like my strongest thing would be like connectedness. That's a real strength in StrengthsFinder. Or woo. Don't we all want woo as our number one? If you've ever seen the show Ted Lasso, is anyone in the chat, let me know if you've seen Ted Lasso. Highly recommend. Ted Lasso is a man of high woo. It's about a folksy football coach who gets hired for no discernible reason to coach a soccer team in England. Hilarity ensues, but so does a lot of charm, sort of a coming of age tale, and a lot of woo by Coach Ted. High woo guy. Apparently, I don't have it. Here's this kid, and somehow oh, there it is. Oh, it's fading in. That's nice. I got input. What in the world is input? Here's this kid. Yeah, so Eric, this show, Ted Lasso, listen, it's like the most heartwarming tale. It'll get you through it, you know, however you're feeling about the state of the world, doesn't matter. This is like an escape of just quality, good television. So find it, it's great. Here's this kid, the left, that's me when I was a wee peasant boy who just found out that one day his best strength is going to be input and not woo. And I tell coworkers that, you know, that I'm high input, and they say, yes, Tatum, we know you like to give input, but apparently that's not what input is all about. This is a strategic thinking characteristic where those with high input love to absorb information. These types of people crave context, data, and research. These are the people who are the go-to for podcast recommendations. Reply all. These are the people that you don't send them interesting articles. You just ask them, what did you think about that piece in the Atlantic last month? And they'll know, and they will have read it, and they will have talking points ready to go. This is sort of my strength in a weird way, is that I'm that kind of person. The reason why high input people love to absorb data, both qualitatively and quantitatively, is because it gives them the confidence to make really good decisions. And strategically, they feel they'll make better or they'll make fewer poor decisions over time as their data sets, their knowledge troves grow. Input is my number one. I love to have as much context, as much data, as much just information as I possibly can to make a decision when the time comes to make a decision. Not to be stuck in analysis paralysis forever, but when the time comes to make a decision, feel like you have as much as you can to be able to make a quality decision. This test told me why I had a subscription to Time magazine when I was 10 years old. I really did. Input is what led me on the journey to become a product manager, and why I love the vision of CallRail. Every business can improve the performance of their marketing in one platform. Products like what CallRail and other purveyors of fine digital goods do is arm businesses, especially small businesses, with data that is clear, actionable, and at your fingertips. How does knowing that my strength, and so if you've been wondering, why is he talking about this? Why is my strength input something that's going to help you in any way to be a better marketer? Well, the truth is we don't have all the same strengths. I'm not high woo, and I'm sad about that. But there are tools to help us close gaps and blind spots and even learn to become stronger in areas of deficiency. You might be amazing at coming up with blog content or bidding on long-tail keywords, but how much data is going into those decisions to optimize and get better? That's where these tools can come in and make you stronger in that category and a better marketer. So let's dive into that. Whoops. If you're running lead capture activities for a small business, then you're likely to have a setup that's maybe kind of like this. All your forms are coming in through something like Gravity Forms. They all show up over there with that form provider. Email is probably on its own over here. Maybe campaigns out of ConvertKit, MailChimp, Marketo, while peer-to-peer happens in Gmail or Outlook. You might be tracking phone calls through Google or some other provider. If you are tracking phone calls at all, hope you are. If not, we're going to talk about it. Texts are really iffy, and you've been thinking about chat, but that means another provider, and who has time for that? All of those leads that you know of go to a spreadsheet somehow, possibly. Maybe they're getting in, they probably have to get that way to get into a CRM, or that CRM can only do like part of that tracking, like outbound. Maybe manually they get in, maybe they go through Zapier. You're reporting out of Google Analytics, so there's a goal attached to each of these actions, but it's just numbers. It's not like the actual people or the identity of those folks that you can be able to know who they are and follow up with them directly. And a lot of the metrics are cumbersome or difficult to get to, or just purely for vanity's sake. This doesn't even get into kind of real, solid, tangible cost per lead analysis, which, if it's done at all, is very manual each month, sort of like Sisyphus rolling a stone up a hill. Does this sound familiar at all? It really genuinely bothers me that so much time is spent pulling data from separate systems. I got into product management because product management is sort of the discipline of helping Sisyphus here finally get the ball up to the top. It's about finding out what real problems are and then solving those problems. So I get a lot of joy out of that. One of my, a friend of mine who is a one-stop shop boutique demand gen agency lead several years ago, we talked about his process of how he goes about compiling analytics for his clients, and how he goes about proving the value of his work every month. And he described this process of just this very manual, like, I go to Google Ads and I pull conversions out of Google Ads, and go to analytics, and maybe if they give me their database or their CRM, then I can pull in data from that, and then I just sort of have to sort of Frankenstein it all together every single month. And I said, if there's anything that we could give you that would like make your life better, he's like, could you just give me like a button to push and it just does that? And so we worked towards providing some of those solutions, and we got pretty close in a lot of ways. I think in some ways we really did solve his problem, and it's a hard problem to solve. I'm not gonna lie, but it really bothers me that so much time is spent pulling data from different systems. And so a few years ago, we went on a grand quest to mitigate this through the vision of full lead attribution. Full lead attribution is all about this. It matters how a lead contacted you, no doubt. But what may matter more is understanding which efforts went into acquiring that customer. What's working? And let's see if there's a trend between which efforts worked early in the journey to which efforts tended to convert more towards the end. So first things first, call tracking. If you know CallRail at all, it's likely that you know us about call tracking, because call tracking is the original and sort of core product offering of CallRail, and where we got our name from. And through the years, we've grown into a much more robust and sort of wraparound platform, which I get to, but at the core is call tracking. And what is that? If you don't know, why does it matter? Most people familiar with call tracking will say that it's like the last puzzle piece that, once in place, completes the whole picture. Because lots of tools exist that have solved for conversations that happen through clicks, but how to track marketing efforts that end up with a phone call, that is opaque. That is difficult. That is not clearly linked to the rest of what's happening in digital marketing. You need to know what makes your phone ring. And let's face it, the level of attribution accuracy of asking someone to stick around for a survey after the call to say, how did you reach us? Or they came into the doctor's office and they filled out a form that said, oh, I Googled this, or what keywords did you use? Like, nobody fills that out or very accurately. So call tracking comes in to help you understand what makes your phone ring. So some of the basics: numbers. Calls are driven by phone numbers. By tracking numbers that will go on your digital and offline marketing collateral, when those numbers are dialed, they are then routed how you choose to your destination number of choice. That could be a cell phone, an office line, an agent with a soft phone on their computer and headset. But you got to have numbers that are able to go on different pieces of marketing activity. So for instance, there's offline source tracking. What is that? It's a unique number placed on non-digital items so that you can measure where those phone calls came from. For instance, you get a billboard, you slap a phone number on a billboard, and it's unique to that billboard. You have a radio ad, you're telling them to call 567-5309, go for it. Different phone number, unique phone number, so you know that call is driven by that radio ad. So that the next month, if you didn't get any calls from the radio ad, maybe don't spend money on the radio ad anymore. Then there's online digital source, right? So you have another source of what's driving phone calls, but these are digital items, but still one unique phone number to track the source. Think Google My Business, or an email signature, or ad extensions. And then there's online website pools, and this is where it gets really fun to me. These are driven by a small, lightweight piece of code that goes on your website or landing pages, and it dynamically switches in and out phone numbers from a pool of numbers that you own, not recycled, but you own. And so that each visitor sees a unique phone number to them. And so when they call, we can say, oh, we have this session based on our technology to say we have this session, this person called, and we were able to track from there through a first party script. And I'm using some jargon here that this may resonate with or not, but first party. So it's your site, it's a person choosing to call you, right? And then we're able to pull from that, what were the things what was the activity that happened on the page? What was where did they come from? What were the UTM parameters that they landed with? What was the keywords that they used if they clicked on a paid Google ad? Things like that. You get that all just through auto magic, right? It just happens. And it's first party, so it's not tracking you across the web to aggregate data to sell. That's a different thing. That's not what this is. Once those numbers are out in the wild, whether they're offline, online, digital, online website pools, once they're out in the wild, you can start measuring what drives the phone call. Which marketing efforts are driving the most phone calls? Which kinds of calls are of the highest quality? Which kinds of calls drive longer conversations? Which sources drive the most qualified leads? Which call flows are leading to abandoned calls? This is a real thing. I recently was talking to a customer who was complaining about how they had a high volume of abandoned calls. They just kept having calls come up that were like, people were out after 15 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever, never talked to anybody. And I looked into how they'd set their call flows, and they had like these long-winded greetings. So you picked up, the call flow would answer, and then the caller would be met with a long message, right? And then they'd ask to be like, press 1 for sales, and then they would get another long message. And that proves out just by the rate of abandoned calls that there's something here that's keeping, you might have all the marketing efforts in place that are driving phone calls, but the phone call can't get to anybody that can actually convert. And so we got to fix that, right? So you can look at call flows to see what's driving abandoned phone calls. You might not have enough people to answer the phone either, and that's probably a good problem to have, but you need to be able to have insight into that to understand that you do have a problem there. Each individual call comes into a dashboard that you can then do things like listen to the recording, reach out to the caller, score the call, add notes, or tag that for later reporting purposes. The options are endless, but it's easy to do. And the beauty of custom call flows, because I like to talk about them because I think they're cool, is that you can set up call flows like you would through a VoIP or traditional provider. You can set business hours, set menus, have round robin simul calls or a call queue, ring your agents, actually route the call based on the source. If you look at this example on this slide, we have a thing called responsive routing. So you can route based on keywords and landing page, and have another branch that's like, if the referrer is StrengthsFinder and you're running a campaign to change my strengths, whatever it is, you can actually route calls in different ways, and you can have that sort of like power of granularity to be able to get calls to, you know, the right set of agents, or even in a very small business, just so you can know, hey, if they came through this landing page, then you could put in a whisper message to you that says, hey, this person's coming through my landing page that was driven through that I'm running right now. And so you just have that context when the phone rings, to be able to connect the marketing effort that you've spent time and money on to the actual conversation on the other end with a potential lead. You can also do things like, you know, you can route calls based on location. You can even tag calls based on actions, such as pressing 1 for sales. But okay, so that's sort of a quick look at call tracking. And one of the things that kind of comes up a lot of times is like, well, doesn't Google do this for free? They do a very light version of this. You don't own the phone numbers, so you can't take them with you if you want to do other things. They get recycled. The idea of recording and transcription, all those things, is not really present. So there's a very lightweight version of it in Google, but it's more lightweight than probably what even sort of a novice marketer would really be able to capitalize off of. So talking about call tracking, big part of who CallRail is, but what about all the data surrounding other forms of interactions? It's still in different places, right? That's kind of what I started out on. Well, we solve this by providing the tools to capture leads, not just by phone call, but via form, text, and chat as well. We then build out a granular journey out of that lead's path from the first touch all the way through to becoming a customer. Yes, we aggregate the data, but it drills down to the lead itself with their name and number and email, and which source drove that first web form submission, for instance. Was it a Google ad? Great. What activity happened before the phone call where the agent determined they were a qualified lead? Being organic? Sure. Why not? It's all there instantly. So on this slide, you see a report of form submissions, form attribution. So we have reports that are sort of, we can splice them out by interaction, form, text, chat, call, or we can, or you can see it all in one place, like one report of the lead journey, regardless of interaction. You can do all this a lot easier than you think. You need some phone numbers. You need to decide how you want your calls to route. You need a short piece of code that goes on your site, and you have to have a good form builder. For instance, you can use the CallRail custom one, or you can instantly capture them from another provider. You want to chat too? You can do that. No new code, light configuration, and the beauty, it's all in one consolidated and instant data set. Like in this report here, this is a leads report. So what you have is the primary dimension of the report is a list of your leads, and then a breakout of what the attribution was for each of the touch points in their milestone. You can see that first, this is like a demo environment deal, and so it's all Google Ads. Congrats, Google Ads, you're killing it. But in reality, Dr. Carol Erzner here may have first became aware of the brand through a Google ad by typing in, by going through a keyword search of tourist agency near me. but then maybe they didn't make a phone call or submit a form or text until later when they came back through a different activity. Maybe it was an organic search that led them to a piece of a video or blog content. Maybe it was a Yelp review that they saw, or a paid Yelp review. Whatever it is, that might have actually been the thing that drove them to becoming a lead, which is when they made first contact. And then it could have been something totally different that drove them to becoming qualified. It's different for every business. It's different for how you're spending your marketing efforts, but the report is sort of agnostic to that, right? It's giving you the data based on, hey, here's the customer's journey, here's what they saw as they went through, and here's what converted. And it does it just on its own. It does it magically. It's not really magic, but I like to call it that. It makes it a little bit more fun. So, conversion intelligence, using that to ensure agent quality. Using a good conversation tool is all about picking out the key terms in any conversation, whether it be a live phone call, a chat, or a web form, that relays insights from natural language, and B, automatically completing a host of tasks. This could be instant classification, tagging for easy reporting, auto qualifying, and more, all based on natural language identification. So what we've done so far is we've gone through the work of connecting our different interactions, different ways that customers are contacting us, whether that's through form or text, chat, or phone call. We're actually getting the journey, the attribution journey, and able to analyze what's driving those marketing efforts to actually convert into leads. And then what happens when the conversation's moved into someone else's hands? What's working there, right? And how do we make that a lot easier? You could and can do that through CallRail by listening to a recording or through a host of other services. It's not unique in that way. But what is unique and special, I think, is being able to rely on conversation and intelligence tools to make it easier for marketers to understand the struggle, and to improve the struggle to drive quality conversations once the phone rings, so that all of that marketing effort isn't wasted by a lack of quality on the other side. It's tough. It can be tough to keep agents on the script. It's difficult to know what kinds of terms and phrases used by the agent lead to higher sales and retention. One of the coolest applications of this for the marketer is to set up conversation intelligence to listen, quote, listen for phrases the agent uses, and then track that against call duration and the customer's overall value or perceived value. This enables you to efficiently figure out who is doing it best, bottle it, and train up the rest to follow. This is really important for another reason. You put a lot of time in understanding what your customers are looking for when they begin their buying process. You're learning their key terms and the way they talk about the problem. If the agent on the other end of the line doesn't understand this, if they are metaphorically speaking a different language than the lead that they're on the line with, a lot can get lost in translation. Identifying the key terms a customer uses and the vocabulary of the most successful agents is vital to ensure a healthy ROI on your lead gen efforts. It is work, but it's a lot easier than listening to recordings blindly. Let the robots do the heavy lifting so you can zero in on what's working. Apply it everywhere and then move on. I, for one, welcome our robot overlords. Okay, integrate with the tools you use most for seamless reporting. The reality is you or your clients may not be ready to have everything in one place. Or you might say, that's cool, but we still use these other systems. You have to know what you're not, and CallRail is not a sophisticated CRM. We're going for lightweight and easy to use and easy to implement for the small business. But if you need your interactions like a call or a form and the data to go with those interactions to update or to create leads in places like Salesforce or HubSpot, for instance, then that can be done with a few clicks and not a heavy and cumbersome implementation process and the extra fees that go with it. I want to make it clear, and I'm just kind of stopping and going off script for a minute. I'm always cognizant when I do these kinds of things to not feel like this is like one long sales pitch. I don't get any commission off of this. I am actually truly passionate about you not wasting your time and money for you or for your clients, because I think that a lot of people have a lot of skills and a lot of talent creatively. They have a passion for business and for driving success, and then they get bogged down in either a lot of manual processes, or they go to these tools that are extremely cumbersome to implement, and they're almost intentionally cumbersome to implement, because that means that you have to pay a huge implementation fee to get it set up, just so you can know what's driving your leads, or making sure that this one system is talking to another system correctly. And that really frustrates me. And so I think it's a great mission to simplify that and make it easier for the customer. So I'm going to come back on script, but I wanted to make that clear that this is something that doesn't have to be this way. And I think it's one of the things that drives us to continue to improve and make a really easy to use product. So you can send interactions to Google Analytics in about 2 clicks. Same for Google Ads, Facebook too, even though, to be clear, there are always a few more clicks with Facebook. And if you've spent any time with Business Manager, if you run ads in Facebook, it's all good. You know how that is, but we still make it as easy as we can. All that is to say is that you can send that data anywhere. You can set up webhooks or leverage the public API to generate custom dashboards in Google Data Studio or another service. It's all there. It's all self-serve. The truth is that sometimes connections between systems can be unreliable for various reasons, like the security rules under one system may sometimes unauthorize a connection to another system, for seemingly completely opaque reasons. The key here is that you want a library of integrations that does a good job of letting you know when something's up, when it happens, so that you're not left with long gaping holes in your data. You want alerts and an easy bird's eye view of the state of every interaction or every integration to know quickly if something needs attention. That's a UX pattern that loves you as the user and wants you to succeed. And when all is just working as it usually does, then it's out of your way so you can focus on spying areas of your spend to optimize. And I went to hit next slide, and it took me all the way to the top. All right, so we're going back down. Okay, in the end, the best platform is the one that reduces the need for multiple tools, multiple screens, and multiple logins to manage. You should be able to talk, track, report, optimize, and carry on the conversation all from one spot, and you can. Your traditional phone companies, even the older VoIP providers, don't make this easy. They aren't offering the value of true marketing analytics on your conversations. They aren't tracking UTM parameters. They aren't telling you which keywords are driving the most conversations. They don't really care, and that's okay. They have billions of dollars. Good for them. I would suggest a better way is to have that same level of communications functionality without the need for another comms provider. You don't need another phone system. You don't need another chat provider. Unite the data, as I'm sure William Wallace once said. I'm pretty clear. CallRail now has the tools available to be your dedicated communications and lead management hub. It's called Lead Center. And with it, customer-facing agents and back office staff can fire their redundant systems in favor of one integrated platform. Imagine the ability to get full lead tracking on your marketing efforts and then being able to instantly transfer the call to another department. Imagine seeing a web form come in to your integrated inbox and being able to, with a click of a button, call that person back, start a text, or email them. Imagine being on a chat with someone who's inquiring about a service and being able to transition to a phone call from one place, from one tool. You can now, and all of that data, the conversations, the reporting, all of it lives in one place. No more swivel chair, no more back and forth. It just works. So that's it. It's a lot of information, but it's important to know there are tools out there to make your life a lot easier. Not just for you as a data-driven marketer, but for your frontline agents and your back office staff. And I realize that sometimes, a lot of the time, all of those roles are rolled into one, you. So it matters even more to have the simplified, consolidated, and easy to set up and use. Utilizing a platform like CallRail won't magically change your core personality traits and strengths, but it will make it seem like you're a lot higher on input to your clients or stakeholders. All right, thanks so much. Turn it over for Q&A.
Jason, that was awesome. I, for one, wish I were higher in the woo score.
Yeah, no, it's hard not to want to be a woo.
I know, right? All of us should want that. So I have a couple of questions that have been submitted so far. And if you have questions for Jason, be sure to drop them in the Q&A and I'll tee them up after I get through these first few. So the first one is kind of a fun one, is when are you ever going to run out of phone numbers? It's kind of funny. I hear all the time from clients that don't understand the technology as far as, well, but how do we have a number dedicated to us and all these other companies are doing it? Like, when are we ever going to run out of numbers? So walk us through. I know it's a silly question, but walk us through that. Like, how does it work?
Yeah. So on the very basic level, when I was a child and I remember using rotary phones, you only had to dial 7 numbers, right? You had to dial, I can't remember what the first 3 digits are, and the last 4 is called the exchange. And before my time, you only had to dial 4 numbers, right? And before that, you would call one number and then they would just sort of dispatch you through, right? And so what happens is that in the public, the PSTN, the public, the PSTN, public switch telephony network, is that in that network, what we've done is continue to grow the number of digits that you need, right? And so it started at back when it was like 1 number that each person needed, and then it went to 4, and then it went to 7, and now you almost everywhere in the country has to dial 10 numbers every time they dial a phone number, and then that gets subdivided into more area codes, which creates more phone numbers. So that's the big picture, how we get more phone numbers. But then how to the different providers get tools. Most of it is that not all people need to keep their phone numbers forever. And so when they choose, so by law, under a telephony service, not through some providers like Google, but through a telephony service, you do have to, you do get to own the number if you want. So you can take them with you, but not everybody does that. And so when they do let those numbers go, then they can be recycled back into a pool and then sold back to somebody that needs them.
Yep, very nice, helpful. So one question that was submitted is, what are some of the most common areas marketers tend to overlook when they're looking into their customer journey? So if they're looking at optimizing each step, what are some areas they overlook that you've seen a lot?
Oh, I think that the 2 things that I see the most is an overemphasis on first touch. Now, I will say this, that I think that every business is different, and that since the sales cycle is different for every business, it's not one size fits all. And that's why I really adopted the mantra of, you need to have the tools that work for you. But I think that there's a pitfall of only looking at first touch and assuming that that is everything, when there are actually multiple touch points that can go through to actually convert to dollars, right? I think that that's one. The second thing is an overemphasis on last click attribution, last touch, if you call it that. And that is largely driven by, I think, a very human desire to show the efforts of your show the quality of your efforts if you are predominantly driving paid spend, PPC, right? And I think and I understand that. I have spoken to many marketers who will refuse to ever show anything but that, because that metric what makes them look good. And I totally get that. I do think that clients and the marketers themselves are better served by actually looking at a agnostic view of the journey, and then actually optimizing on that agnostic view. And I think looking at it from different angles, right? So I think that there's value in looking at, okay, what's working at top of funnel, first touch, versus what's working in the qualified level. And then what's looking, and then getting that look from splitting it, doing, we have 50-50 attribution or W-shaped. Others do things like U-shaped. I think that those things are really valuable, sort of getting a balanced view of what's converting.
Yeah, that's a great point. Something I talked about in the first presentation was about identifying the one source of truth. So for example, every marketer has been in the room where somebody sees all of the reports and they don't like the fact that Facebook is claiming credit for more conversions than Google Analytics or Google Ads shows, right? None of them match, and it's because of attribution. So that's an awesome point of making sure that you have identified your one source of truth.
Yeah, and I do think accurate. And I think that that's a great point too. Is that the actual ad networks themselves are disincentivized from presenting data to anyone that doesn't make it look like as if their ads are the ones that are driving this conversion. So that's why I would recommend finding tools. CallRail is one. There are others that give you that agnostic look into the actual journey. Yeah,
I love it. Next question. Does it matter the number of different touches a lead makes before converting into a customer? So talking about attribution modeling, does it matter? How do you handle that whenever they touch multiple times?
Yeah, I think that is, I think that's a great question. And I don't think that there's a one size fits all answer. I think that on one side, in theory, it doesn't matter as long as there's conversions, right? But that's a very sort of high level, like pie in the sky look, but it does matter because you're putting effort and money into creating the efforts that drive each of those touch points. And so I think that there is value based on your industry, based on your product, services, and how long that cycle, that from awareness to customer cycle is tolerable for your own cash flow as a business. It might matter to try to find ways to reduce the number of touch points, and therefore reduce overall spend and getting the maximum amount out of each of those marketing efforts. Yeah,
no, that makes a lot of sense. How often should you listen to your calls when you want to make improvements to your talk tracks?
I don't think you need to listen to every call. I'm a little bit, so from my point of view as a product manager, a lot of my role at CallRail is new product R&D. And so I kind of disappear for a year and then I come back and I have this whole new thing. And it's a lot of fun for me because it's sort of like launching a new business within a larger business.
Yeah.
And early on, when we first get that first seed of customers, I'm talking to every single customer. I'm talking to them multiple times, right? I'm listening. When they first starting to interact with sales and support, I'm looking at every support ticket. I'm listening to every phone call that our agents have. And then as it gets bigger, the volume gets bigger, then I start sampling, right? I start sampling, I start using tools that are going to alert me of key conversations, key moments that are sort of painting a larger picture so I can find trends. Or spot areas of concern or good things that I want to highlight without having to necessarily boil the ocean.
Yeah, perfect. What are the best ways to track leads from direct mailers?
Well, I think there's a lot of different ways. At CallRail, we're gonna recommend phone calls, but it definitely depends on your business. I think having a unique phone number, and I think that this is one of the game changers for tools that do call tracking, is that having that unique number that you can tie directly to different pieces of of print collateral mailers is great, and it also gives you the ability to A/B test different types of mailers with different phone numbers so that you can get a different view. So I would say phone numbers are great, but I also think that this is a hot take. I think that QR codes are actually starting to be better, and this might be controversial in the chat. This might be controversial in the chat. This isn't something CallRail's selling, but But since the ability to scan a QR code has become native to iPhone and I believe Android, it's just a lot easier. You don't have to have a separate app. And so I think that, especially if you're targeting, a generation that might be a little bit more hip to the QR code, I think it's worth it to try it and see how it does, right? And I have friends of mine that are just friends that all sort of like armchair consult, and my point to them is always like, I'm not here to tell you how to market. I'm here to tell you how to measure, how to experiment, and encourage you to experiment with other things, even if they might have seemed silly or written off years ago.
And I think a good point you brought up is it becoming native on the phone technologies and the cameras. And I feel like menus at restaurants now mostly being used by QR codes because of COVID, that definitely has increased people's comfort level with using them and understanding of how easy the process is great.
I think that's probably, Jenny, why it's in my head, because it's actually being utilized in such a practical way now based on the times.
Functional.
And it's functional, and it becomes easy to use. And I think there's some environmental positivity to it as well. So but that's just one example, really. I think it comes down to trying different things.
Yeah, I love it. Perfect. And last question for you, sir, is, are there any training resources you'd recommend for someone in a marketing role that wants to become more analytics savvy?
Oh, okay. Training resources to become more analytics savvy. Gosh, that's a great question. I am not great at taking online virtual things.
Yeah.
I will say
okay.
this. No, I will say this. When I first got into this stuff, I was I got my how to Google ads, stuff, right? And it was the book or whatever, trying to understand this really what felt like to be really complex. In some ways is really complex. And I just never really took to it. I am very much a trial by fire type of person. And so what I have found the most successful for me is to actually do the tactile work of trying to try something that you actually want to have an outcome of, and then figuring out how to measure it, right? And I think that where you get a lot of assist is that there are a lot of businesses in the B2B world, not just CallRail, who are putting out a ton of content to do some of that. Let me come alongside you and tell you, aside from lead gen on our side, let me tell you how some of the practical tips for lead gen or lead scoring, for instance, or whatever. And then that might lead you to tools like the ones that I'm trotting out today, that do make things a lot easier. But I think it is definitely valuable to have a bedrock of knowledge, and I definitely don't want to discount going through getting an analytics academy and certifications on those things. I think they're valuable. Sure. But at the end of the day, for me, it really comes down to doing. And then as I find problems, then I'm trying to I wish I could do that a little bit better. Then I go out and start Googling how do I do this? And you'll find people, we have great agency partners that put out YouTube videos on how to be more savvy. And I think finding those and chasing them down is really the way to go.
Awesome. And on that note, our next presentation is actually Brett Lohmeyer, our Director of Decision Science, and he's going to be talking about how anyone can make predictions in R in minutes. And when he first pitched this, I was like, what? This is a pretty technical topic. And then I actually saw the deck and I was like, okay, this is cool. This is fun. Let's see how this goes. So I agree with you. Trial by fire is how I roll too. So I like it.
Awesome. Jenny, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate it. I hope that the day's going great. And we'll talk again soon, I hope.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jason. And for everyone else, all the attendees, we'll be back at the top of the hour. So stay with us. We're back in 9 minutes, and Brett Lohmeyer will get started. Thanks, Jason.
Take care, everyone.